Hello everyone, welcome to the Python series on LearnIn. My name is Nse. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about string methods in Python. Before we go to talking about string methods, let's quickly see what methods are. Methods are functions, but they have to be called with an object. We are going to see what this means as we go deeper into today's lesson. What is an object? In this context, we could say that all the data types are objects, like strings, lists, dictionaries, sets, etc. So far, we have only talked about the string data type. So let's see how to use methods on strings. Methods that work with strings are called string methods. String methods are basically methods that work with strings. These methods allow you to perform various operations on strings, such as manipulating their content, extracting information, searching for patterns, and much more. Let's go to the Python documentation and see the string methods available. I have provided this link in the description. So here in the documentation, come to where we have string methods, click on it, and it opens this page that has the string methods in Python. You can see that we have some methods here: str.capitalize, str.casefold, str.count.encode. It's a lot of string methods that we have here. We are going to see some examples. Remember, in our previous lesson, we saw how the format method works. Today, we are going to see some more examples on how some of the string methods work. So let's head over to VS Code and write some code. We have the lower method here. Lower method converts all characters in a string to lowercase. I'd want us to note that the syntax is like so. You have the string, you have dots, and then you have the method name followed by parentheses. It is very important to note this syntax. Remember that when we worked with built-in functions, we had values enclosed within the parentheses. Let's say we have name variable set to Nse and we want to print name, in which case we are going to have print and then we have name in the parentheses. Name here is an argument. If we also decided to print Nse directly, Nse in this case would be an argument too. So in the context of programming, an argument refers to a value that is passed to a function or method when it is called. It is a way to provide input to a function or method, allowing it to perform computations or operations. Just like we have seen here, name is providing input to this print function, and the print function is going to perform an operation on name. If we had another function like length of Nse, let's say, in this case, len is the function and Nse is the argument. So the len function is going to perform an operation on the value within this parenthesis, and that value just happens to be Nse right now. This makes Nse an argument. Think of it as a piece of information or data that you give a function or method to work with. In this print example, name is the data that we have given the print function to work with. In the case of len function, nse is the data that we have given len function to work with. In this print function where we have nse, you can also say that nse is the data that we have given this print function to work with. In this case, the output of this code or this code or this code would be based on the provided argument. So if we had, let's say, len abc, here in this case, abc is the argument. It is the data that we have given the len function, this len function, to work with. The output of this code on line 13 would be based on what the len function does with the string abc. I hope that you get the point. Now, methods use the dot notation, just like we have seen here, str dot lower. This dot here is being referred to as the dot notation. Just like we saw with the format method in our previous lesson. If you would want to see the format method, please refer to the video on escape sequences and format method. The link is in the description. So when working with methods in Python, you use the dot notation to access and invoke them. However, some methods may require arguments. So when you have to use a method in Python, you have to write it like this. First, you have the object. In this case, the object is str. Then you have the dot notation, and then you have the method, and you have parentheses. The method here is lower, and it comes with parentheses. Always remember to include the parentheses. Let's uncomment this code and see how the lower method works. Lower method is going to convert all characters in a given string to lowercase. So in this case, we have our string hello world, and it is stored in this greeting variable. Notice here that in this hello world, we have H in uppercase. We also have W in uppercase. We are calling the lower method on it, and we are storing the value in this lowercase variable, and we are printing the lowercase variable to the terminal. Now let's run this code and see what happens. Notice here on the terminal that we have hello world printed out all in lowercase. H, which is in uppercase here, is now in lowercase. W, which is in uppercase here, is now in lowercase. So that's what the lower method does. If I had name set to nse in all caps, let's have a variable, let's say edited name, and let's store the value of calling the lower method on name. Let's print edited name. Remember that in this case, it is edited name that holds the value of calling the lower method on this name variable. Let's save, and let me comment this out so it doesn't confuse us. Let's run this code. Notice that on the console, I have nse printed out, but all in lowercase. So that's what the lower method does. It's going to convert all the characters in a string to lowercase. The initial value of the string does not change. By that, I mean that if I print name as it is, notice that the value of name is still nse in its original format, all in uppercase. So if you want the changed value preserved, then you have to store it in a variable. Just like we did here, we created a different variable, called it edited name, and then we stored the value of calling the lower method on this name variable. I hope that you get the point. So now let's see some more string methods. Let's talk about this upper method. Upper method converts all characters in a string to uppercase, kind of like the opposite of what the lower method does. So I have this block of code here. I'm going to uncomment it and explain it for us to understand. So in this case, we have this greeting variable that holds this string hello world, and we are calling the upper method on the greeting variable, and we are storing the value of calling upper method on this greeting variable in uppercase variable, and we are printing uppercase. Like I explained a few minutes ago, when you call this method on a string, it returns a new string. It does not alter the initial value of the string. It returns a new string to you. So that is why we have decided to create a new variable to hold the new string that we are going to get from calling this upper method on the greeting variable. I hope that you get the point. So now let's run this code and see what it comes to. Notice here now in the console that we have hello world printed, but all in uppercase. Once again, let's print the greeting variable, and you are going to notice that the output is as is here. Calling this upper method on the variable does not change the original form of the variable. Let's run the code and see that we have hello world just as it is here. I hope that you get the point. Now let's talk about another method, the strip method. Strip method removes leading and trailing white space from a string. In explaining this, I'm going to use this example. Here we have greeting variable. We set it to the string hello world. In this string, we have empty spaces before hello world. We also have empty spaces after hello world. The empty spaces before hello world is what is being referred to as the leading white space, while the empty spaces after hello world is what is being referred to as trailing white space. You can simply think of the leading white space as being the space to the left of the string, and the trailing white space as being the space to the right of the string. Now, calling the strip method on this hello world string is going to remove the spaces we have before hello world and after hello world. We have the stripped variable holding the new string that we are going to get from calling strip method on greeting. Let's run the code and see what happens. Notice that we have hello world printed on the terminal without these spaces. I kind of feel like the difference is not very clear. Let's print the original greeting variable alongside the stripped greeting variable. So let's run this code. Notice that after we used the strip method on the greeting variable, we have an output shown to us without spaces. But the original version of the greeting variable has this leading space here. The trailing space is not obvious because there is nothing after it. But if we were to print the length of this greeting variable, remember we said that white spaces count. You're going to see the number of characters shown to us on the terminal. Let's run this code. Notice that we have 19 returned to us as the length of the string. Now let's also print the length of stripped. Notice that the length after greeting has been stripped is 13. So that definitely shows to us that we lost some characters when we called strip on this greeting variable. This might be funny, but I just have to say it this way. When you look at the values returned to us, you're going to see that from hello to world is complete. There's nothing missing between hello and world. So obviously the characters that we lost are this leading and trailing spaces. I hope that you get the point. Now let's head over to the documentation and take a look at the strip method. Now notice that we have square brackets in here and we have chars in this square bracket. Now what this means is that the strip method can take an argument. However, this square bracket indicates that the argument is optional. In this case, you may want to provide an argument depending on what you want the strip method to do. You may decide to not provide an argument, also depending on what you want the strip method to do. In this example that we just saw, we did not provide any argument. Now let's see an example that takes an argument. In this example, we have greeting variable storing the string hello world, but in this case, we have 3 dots before hello world, and we also have 3 dots after hello world. And we are calling the strip method on this greeting variable. In this case, however, we are providing an argument, and this argument we are providing is these 3 dots. So this is us asking Python to remove 3 dots before our string hello world and after our string hello world. And we are storing the value in stripped and we are printing stripped to the terminal. Let's run this code and see what happens. Notice that we have hello world returned to us without any of these dots. If we print greeting, let's run the code. Notice that we have hello world with all the 3 dots before and after the string printed. So when you provide an argument using the strip method is going to strip the string based on the value of the argument provided. Let's say that we instead had commas before and after the string. In this case, we would want our argument to be commas like that. And let's run the code. Notice again that we have hello world without these two commas after calling the strip method on it. I hope that you get the point. Now let's talk about another method, the lstrip method. The lstrip method works like the strip method, except that it only strips from the leading, which is the left side of the string. I'm going to uncomment this code. It's the example we are using. So notice that we have this white space before hello world, which is our string, and hello world is the value of this greeting variable. So we are calling the lstrip method on the greeting variable, and we are storing the value in new greeting variable, and we are printing new greeting to the console. Let's print new greeting. Let's run the code. Notice that we have hello world printed to us without this space. Now if we are to print greeting, let's run the code. You're going to see that on greeting we still have this white space, but after calling the lstrip method on greeting, the white space is gone. I hope that you get the point. Now we also have another method, the lstrip method. It works like the lstrip method, only that in this case it strips the trailing characters. That means characters from the right side of the string. So in this case, we have this example. I've already written it out, so I'll uncomment it. And we have hello world with this trailing white space. Let me make it trailing dots so that it will be obvious. We have this trailing dots, so we are going to strip. In this case, we are going to provide an argument, which is these three dots. And just for the sake of clarity, let's have another set of three dots before the string. And let's run this code. Notice that on using rstrip, we have the three dots gone. We're only left with the three dots before the string. If we call lstrip on greeting and we call rstrip on greeting, let's see what is going to happen when we run this code. But before we run this code, I want you to notice that the value of calling rstrip is stored in new greeting, while the value of calling lstrip is stored on new greeting too. Now we are printing the two variables, new greeting and new greeting 2, to the terminal. Let's run the code. So notice that while rstrip removes three dots after the string, lstrip removes three dots before the string. So that's basically it. Now let's talk about another method known as the replace method. The replace method replaces all occurrences of a substring with another substring. The syntax is as so. Let me make this lowercase. You have the string, you have dots, you have replace, then you have the parenthesis. Now within the parenthesis, you're going to provide arguments. You'd provide the old string, you'd provide the new string, and optionally you could provide a count. That's why this count is wrapped with square brackets. We have this string hello world, and we are calling the replace method on it. Within the parenthesis of the replace method, we have arguments. These arguments are world and people. World here represents old, that's the old string. People here represents new, that's the new string. So when we have two arguments like this, we know that count is not provided. The first argument would be the old string, and the second argument would be the new string. In this case, we are simply asking Python to replace world with people. We are telling Python, considering this string hello world, where you see world, change it to people. Now let's run this code and see what happens. On the terminal here, you can see that we have hello people in place of hello world, showing that world here in the original string has been replaced with people. If we, for any reason, had hello world, I'm not sure what that reason would ever be, but let's say we had something like that. And let's run this code, keeping in mind that for every world in this string, we are going to change to people. Let's run this code. And now notice that we have hello people. If we had hello in this case, now having hello here means that we should replace hello with people. Let's run this code. Now notice that we have people, world. I hope that you get the point. Let's take another example. In this example, let's introduce a count argument. Let the count be 1. Now let's run this code and see what happens. Notice here that the string is subscribe to LearnIn. LearnIn has good videos. Now after we call the replace method on this string, we have output to us subscribe to channel. LearnIn has cool videos. Now we have LearnIn on 2 different points within this string, but because we provided the count as 1, only the first LearnIn is replaced with channel. Now if we change the count to 2, let's save, let's run the code. Notice now that both the first and the second LearnIns here have been replaced with channel. So we now have subscribe to channel. Channel has good videos. I hope that that's clear. I mean, it's the closest example I could come up with. It's a funny example, but I do hope that you get the point. So when you do not provide, so where the count is not provided, all the old characters within the string will be replaced with the new character provided. But where count is specified, the replacement is going to be based on the count provided. We have seen some methods. Before the end of this lesson, I want to talk about something called method chaining. In Python, there is something called method chaining. It simply refers to the technique of calling multiple methods on an object in a single statement. All I'm saying here is that it is possible to use more than one method on a string all at once. Let's consider this example. In this example, we have string variable that holds hello world. On this string, we are calling the strip method, the replace method, and the capitalize method. We've not talked about capitalize here, so let's just make this upper. I think we've talked about the upper method, and we know that it's going to convert every letter into an uppercase letter. So let's see how this plays out. Notice that hello world has leading and trailing white spaces. So we are calling strip on it. The strip method is going to remove the leading and trailing white spaces, and then we are calling replace method. We are saying replace hello with hi. In this string, replace hello with hi. And then we are calling the upper method on it, that after replacing hello with hi, change everything to uppercase. Now let's run this code and see what happens. So notice that we now have hi world returned to us all in uppercase letters. Also notice that we have hi in place of hello. This shows to us that hello has been replaced with hi. Just like we asked here, replace hello with hi. And we no longer have the leading and trailing white spaces. So this shows to us that the strip method works. So in this case, the strip method took out the leading and trailing white spaces. The replace method replaced hello with hi, and the upper method made the result into uppercase letters. That's why we have hi world returned to us. I hope that you get the point. This is all that we are going to take today. I do hope that you found today's lesson very helpful. Don't forget to like and share this video. Also, subscribe to learn in. Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson.